Well, I think we have a good group who's joined us. We may still have a few more joining as we kick it off here, but just want to welcome everybody to our webinar, Invest in Your Values, hosted by the Feather River Land Trust and many nonprofit partners here in the Feather River watershed. Karen Clevin is going to kick things off tonight, but I'm just here to kind of facilitate our webinar. My name is Corey Pargy. I'm the Development Director of the Feather River Land Trust. And I'm just going to go over a couple housekeeping things and then turn it over to Karen. So if everybody, as I ask, can please keep yourself on mute throughout the presentation. We will have opportunities to have any of your questions answered. So if you do have questions throughout the presentation, please go ahead and put them in the chat. That should be available to you depending on your screen. Usually at the bottom of your screen, a little black bar will pop up with a small little kind of talking bubble, little chat box that says chat. So you can simply click that to open the chat and put your questions there. Anytime throughout the presentation, if you have a question, feel free to put it in the chat. We will wait until the end of the presentations to do Q&A with all of our speakers. And yeah, we'll probably just have everybody stay on mute. If at the end you really have, a burning question, we might invite people to come off of mute and ask if we have a little extra time at the end. So I'm going to go ahead and, one more thing, sorry. As you're looking at your screen, you have a couple different options for how you can view the speakers. So depending on the program and type of computer you're using, at the top of the screen where you can see different videos of different folks participating, there should be like 3 or 4 little boxes that either have multiple boxes in them, which is called the gallery view, where you can see everybody in the meeting, or one little small box, which if you hover over it should say show small active speaker video. And I do recommend you click that so that your video settings are set to be viewing the person who is speaking. Otherwise, you might hear their voice but not see them speaking. So those are your options for the speaker settings. Okay, I'm going to turn it over to you, Karen, to kick us off.
Karen, you're on mute. Thank you very much. I was on mute. Let's start over again. Thank you all for coming. We're very happy to be able to do this and involve a lot of different local partners. Just tell you a little bit about myself. Right now, I'm the legacy coordinator for the Feather River Land Trust. But for many years, I've really been interested in using investments and gifts or donations to just make a positive difference in my local community or internationally. And just to give you a little bit of background myself, I did spend about 5 years as an investment advisor doing community investing in Marin County. And when I moved back to Plumas County, I was fortunate to get a job with the Feather River Land Trust as the development director, which I did for 10 years. And then I resigned, and fortunately, somebody like Corey took my place. So presently, I'm the legacy giving coordinator for the Land Trust. And so I'm still really interested in raising gifts that make a big difference in the world. I just want to tell you a little bit about why I think this webinar is important. Is because in the next decade, there's millions, billions of dollars, trillions of dollars that's going to be transferring from the baby boom generation, which is my generation, to the next generation. And millions of those dollars will also go to charities as gifts in wills and trusts. And so I had an interest in how some of our local organizations can actually attract some of that money. And there's a few statistics that I just thought were interesting about wills and trusts and leaving gifts in your wills. And that is that 80% of people, 80% of Americans give to charities, but only 16% have wills or trusts, and only 5% leave a legacy gift to charities. So that's why I thought it was so important to be able to educate our donors about how they can leave gifts in their wills or IRAs and really impact their local community for the future. And so the most, well, all the speakers are important, but it was very important to get someone who's quite knowledgeable about wills and trusts, who's an estate planning attorney, and that is Jen McCory, and she will be the next speaker. And then we'll have speakers who are local donors who you can hear from of why they put money in their wills or why they put gifts in their wills or trusts and how they did it. And also how to give gifts through your IRAs. But right now I want to introduce Jen McCory, who got back from Costa Rica last week, but fortunately she's here now. So that's fantastic. And she's been a practicing lawyer since 1997. And presently she's moved into areas of law, including estate planning and probate. And she's a native of Quincy. She grew up here. I've known her for a long time. She moved back to Quincy in 2009, and she took over Peter Henschel's estate planning law practice. So anyway, from there, I'll just let Jen take it over.
Great, thank you so much. Thanks for everyone for coming. So if you can get one more slide, maybe two, one more than that. So I've got a couple of teaser questions, and I may not take all the time that I need. So just feel free to, of course, put your questions into the chat box, and certainly we can answer questions at the end. So why do you want to have a will or a trust? Basically, if you die without a will or a trust, how your assets are distributed upon your death, meaning who they go to, is decided by California law and not your intentions. And those things often can diverge. So certainly, if you have an intention of providing a legacy gift to a nonprofit, California law is not going to help you if you don't have a will or a trust. So if that's your intention, it is imperative that you actually create a will or a trust. And essentially, will or a trust, they both direct the executor of a will or the successor trustee of your trust on how to distribute your assets in your estate after all the debts are paid, to whom it goes, everything goes to, whether it's a car or stock account or cash deposit, real estate, whatever. So the difference between a will and a trust, both documents instruct a person or an entity on how to distribute your estate once you've passed. The primary difference, though, is that a trust will allow your property to pass to your beneficiaries without going through probate. Which is a court-approved process. A will distributes your property in accordance with your wishes, but it does require court supervision depending upon how many assets and what dollar amount your assets reach to within your estate. So they may need to go through a formal probate. There are other easier court-approved property passing mechanisms that aren't that full probate. But typically, if you've got any real estate, it's going to probably trigger a full probate if you pass without a trust. So the downside of probate is that it's very expensive. And so just for example, attorney's fees and executor fees, they're based upon percentage of what your estate is valued that's going through probate. If, for instance, you leave a house that's worth about $350,000, attorney's fees will be $10,000 of that. Executor fees will be $10,000 of that. Costs that are typically associated with probate, about $2,000 to $2,500 right now. So that's a good almost $25,000 that's taken from the estate off the top. And so it's an unnecessary expense that your estate could end up having to deal with. The other downside is it's extremely long. It can be long. I have a probate right now that has been in place since 2006. And so you'd like to believe they'd be done with quickly. That's certainly not always the case. The shortest I've ever seen is about 5 months, 6 months. The upside of probate is that if there are disputes as to debts or there's fighting amongst beneficiaries, It is a court-approved process. And once the estate has been distributed and the court has stamped the approval on it, typically everything else is settled and everyone can move on. So that there are some benefits to probate, even though there are some expenses. Basically a trust, because I said it basically allows your successor trustee to administer the estate without that court approval, is that it goes much more quickly. It's a lot more cost effective. The downsides of a trust is it's more expensive upfront. And then if you fail to fund the trust, meaning you fail to put the assets in the name of the trust, then those assets may go through probate anyway. So in order to make sure that you set up your trust properly, you want to make sure to fund that trust itself. And then I think the last question is, how do you leave a charitable gift in your will or your trust? Many charities will have an example of language on their website. I know that the Land Trust, for instance, has that you can go find, and you can just have your attorney, or if you're doing your will yourself or your trust yourself, you can just add it into that that document, whatever one you're doing. First, you need to decide what you want to leave to the charity. And it can be a specific piece of property. It can be a piece of real estate. It can be a cash account. It can be a stock account. It can be an IRA, which I know that they're talking about later. It can be a vehicle. It can be anything, really. The other alternative, though, you can do is you could leave a percentage of your estate to the charity. So you can say, I want 90% to go to my family and 10% to go to this charity, that charity, or another. You can name multiple charities. You can name just one. I mean, it is important to have enough information in there so that if it's a long time between setting this up and when you pass away, that you have enough information so that the successor trustee or the executor can find the actual charity that you've identified. Additionally, there are provisions usually where you discuss that the property is either going to go for a specific purpose for the specific charity to use in a particular way, or for general purposes. Most charities would like to see it written as general purposes so that you don't tie their hands on how that asset is distributed and used. If you do try to limit how the charity uses the asset, it has to be within their charitable purposes. So you can't have them tied to a purpose that is not within what they're doing in the first place. So those are sort of the quick answers to those questions, and I will stay on for the entirety of the meeting so that if there are questions for me, I'm around.
Thank you very much, Jen. And I'm sure there will be questions in the chat. The next person that we would like to talk about why they gave money in their trust and how they did it is Bob Blesse. I'll just give, Bob's family has been tied to Plumas County for many years, since 1958, when his mom and dad moved and bought property in Bucks Lake. He had a professional career at UNR for 30 years, and he's lived overseas in Italy for quite a few years. And recently moved back to Quincy, but he is also going to be doing quite a bit of traveling in the next few months. But anyway, he volunteered to help us out and give us a little insight to why he included a nonprofit in his trust, and why he and how he did it. He actually did it through, well, I'll let him talk about it. Go ahead, Bob.
Bob, you're on mute.
Bob, you need to unmute.
Oh, and I just told my best joke. Oh, well.
You're going to have to start over again, Bob.
No, I actually, what I did say is, yeah, I'm on the Blesse property off the Bucks Lake Road with an unbelievable amount of snow. We've been shoveling all day. I learned about the Feather River Land Trust about 5 years ago, and I was really thrilled to read about the incredible work that the Land Trust is doing in this area, which means so much to me. It just happened to be, it was just a couple of years before I returned from Italy, where I went after I retired in 2014. So I set up a monthly giving program to enable our family to give to the Land Trust. And then when I returned to Plumas County in 2020, I was going through some life changes that required that I write a new will. And I learned about free will. Frankly, I think I just found free will online and thought, wow, this is cool. And I read about them, that they are an organization that where you can create a will or a revocable trust on their website without any charge. And then they work with nonprofits to give people who are doing their will or trust an opportunity to donate to that nonprofit. Using free will right online, sitting at this table where I'm sitting right now, I created my revocable trust, and I don't think it took me more than about an hour to complete all the online forms that they have. They're very thorough. They ask you a lot of questions, and during that process, I was given the opportunity to give put part of my estate in my trust to give it to a nonprofit. And of course, I chose the Feather River Land Trust because I believe so much in the work that they're doing. So when it was all completed after that hour, I printed out all the forms. My sister Sue and I went into Quincy, where she knows a notary, and we notarized them on the hood of my car. And now they're in our family's safe deposit box at Plumas Bank. It was a really simple process, and I felt so good after I was done with it, because I made a contribution to an organization that I believe is very significant, and that particular donation will be part of the money that they use to do their great work after I'm gone. So that's it. Shall I mute now?
Okay, thanks so much, Bob. And it's nice. I've also used the freewill.com, and it is, it is fairly easy. And in some cases, I'll just say a little bit about it. In some cases, it's a way to get all your information down, and you might really feel that you still need an attorney, but at least you have all the information together. So there's different ways to use it. Our next speaker is a really longtime resident of Plumas County, Chris Murray. And he also has done left gift in his estate in sort of different ways. And he, I think he's retired now, I'm not sure, but he was involved with the Murray Company, a construction company, for a long time. And he actually grew up in Plumas County. And he's very involved in lots of different community organizations. And I think he has a special passion for the Plumas Ski Club. So anyway, I'll let Chris take it from there, and he can talk about why he included some nonprofits in his will and how he went about doing it. And I suppose anything else, well, maybe not anything else he wants to talk about, but okay, Chris.
Thank you, Karen. And it's because of Karen that I'm at all involved in giving away assets on my passing. So I thank you for that education, Karen. so as a strong believer in community, I just feel real good about giving part of my assets away, and I feel on a global level, I feel very privileged in how I've been allowed to live, and I think I may be guilty of being part of that disparity in assets when we look at our planet. And so maybe I'm assuaging my guilt a little bit by tossing some of it here and there. And so I did as you did, Mr. Blesse, and have been giving a few bucks a month to the land trust. And then at Karen's invitation, set out an amount in my trust to go to the land trust. And I'll look at these numbers again, but I would hope to increase all of them as I realize that I need less. And just like my kids don't want my furniture, I don't think they really need my money either. So the more of it I can give to things that build this community that I love, the better I feel. And so after learning from you, Karen, about legacy giving programs, I then mentioned it to Darla. She has been, I think she isn't any longer, the head of the Friends of Plumas Wilderness. And then I also helped the Plumas Ski Club, which has been around since the 1950s, to have a legacy giving program. And now I and I believe several others in our ski club are setting themselves up to create legacy gifts to them. So all in all, I feel like I'm on the learning, taking into this thing, and it is my hope that the result is that I'm giving back. So that's it.
So Chris, I have a question. Did you do a trust, and did you do it with an attorney or online?
I did it with my attorney, Pete Henschel, and then I continued to use Jen McQuarrie for legal questions. Okay, thanks very much. There's another way actually that you can gift in your lifetime using, it is part of your estate, which a lot of people have IRAs, or individual retirement accounts. And that's why Mary volunteered with me asking her if she could talk about how she gifts through her IRA and why she does it that way, and what are the tax benefits. So these are people who have individual retirement accounts that I think a lot of them don't know. It's a great way to gift if you can through those. Mary?
Yes, I'm here.
Great, thank you.
Can you see me?
I can.
Okay.
I forgot to get your background.
Well, I grew up in the Bay Area, a little town of Belmont, which is very yuppie now, but it didn't used to be. And I went to college at University of Wyoming and graduated in business administration, and then traveled. I've kind of done some globe trotting throughout my life, and ended up with a career in construction as an estimator and a project manager for a company that did commercial and industrial buildings, no residential. And because I didn't want to go back and get another degree, I asked somebody at the company that had been there a long time, and I said, what can I do to get their attention? So I went back to school at night and weekends and took some construction classes because I really knew nothing about construction. And the advice I got from a friend who I worked with, she was in the real estate department. She said, why don't you get your general contractor's license? She said, that will get their attention. So that's what I did. And from that, I moved on to become an estimator and then eventually a project manager, which was a wonderful career. This was in Southern California. My late husband and I moved to Quincy in 2000, and it's very different than growing up and living in the city, as you all know, and we just loved it, and I enjoy all the outdoor activities of kayaking and cross-country skiing and snowshoeing and hiking. So I feel very fortunate to be healthy enough to still enjoy all those activities. I was introduced to the Feather River Land Trust, and I can't tell you how many years ago it was, but I just really believe in the goals and the preservation of land that can never be developed. And so I started donating to that, as I do other local organizations. And talking to my CPA and financial planner, they educated me on the fact that if you donate directly from your IRA, as I have from a portion or all of your annual distribution, required distribution, I should say, there's no tax on that if it goes directly. So you can do as much of that as you want. And as long as the check from the company goes directly to the land trust, it's never considered as income. Therefore, it's not taxable. Whereas if you take the money and then write a personal check to the land trust, it is counted as income and then deducted as a donation to a nonprofit, but you don't get the same tax benefits. There is some tax, and I suppose that depends on your income and whatever. But when I found this out, I thought, oh, that makes it real easy. Then I can just direct them to issue a check directly to the land trust. So it's a win-win. And I have not included the land trust in my trust. I may do that in the future, but so far this has worked well for me. And like I say, I can't think of a better organization to donate to, and a few others that are also local. So that's my story. You're muted, Karen.
I just want to add on the IRAs, if you have an IRA. And so for some people, obviously, for your income, you need those required minimum distributions. But in Mary's case, she doesn't need all of it. And so it was a tax benefit for her to donate a portion of that. And also IRAs or life insurance, you can also leave a nonprofit organization as a beneficiary. So that's another way you can also gift to organizations that you believe in. Okay, I think we did pretty well there. That was fantastic. Lots of information. So I think that Corey is going to take over with some questions and answers that she's going to be getting from the chat.
Yeah, well, we don't have too many questions yet. So if anybody does have a question, please go ahead and pop it in the chat. We have our first question from Suzanne, who this was posted during your presentation, Jen. So I'll pose it to you first, but she's asking if her IRA has beneficiaries indicated, are they still mentioned in a trust or a will? So do you kind of need the trust or the will to mirror the beneficiary indications in an IRA?
Sure, that there are several types of assets that don't go through either a will or a trust. And an IRA is a perfect example of that because they have their own beneficiary status, the same as with life insurance. You can also have certain bank accounts that have a payable upon death designation. So those types of assets don't go through a will or a trust.
Okay, so the answer, I guess, is no, that if the IRA is entirely distinct from the will or trust in terms of beneficiaries.
That's correct.
Okay. And then as sort of a follow-up, I think, to that, and maybe you answered this when talking about bank accounts, but if someone has a beneficiary designated on their bank account as well, should those bank accounts also be mentioned in the will or trust?
If that question is for me, it's the same kind of answer. So if you have that beneficiary designation on anything, all of those vehicles for money are not going to go through either the will or the trust. So it's a matter of making sure that you know how those are set up with your banks, with your and making sure your IRAs have the correct beneficiaries on them, and same with your life insurance. Those are all outside of the will and the trust.
Okay. Did you have any follow? I don't think so. So I'll keep going. We have one other question, which Melissa's asking. So this is a question for you, Mary, but she's trying to understand if you are donating directly through your IRA, besides not paying taxes on that distribution, what is the tax benefit to you? So Mary, I don't know if you can come off of mute.
I'm sorry. Okay, so the tax benefit is, and I don't know how much it is. I assume it depends on what tax category you fall under as far as percentage, but by having it go directly from your IRA to your the beneficiary, in this case, Feather River Land Trust, it is never it is not considered income. Whereas if you take that money, it is considered as income. Now, I guess there would be one exception if you've already paid taxes on it. So if it's a Roth IRA, mine was not. I never paid taxes on it. So once you withdraw that money to yourself, you are taxed. Now, then as you complete your tax returns, because you've donated some or all of that to a nonprofit, you can deduct that from your taxes, but it's not as much as if you had never taken the money. Does that answer the question?
And also, you can also, for some of those questions, because we're not, necessarily accountants, or you can also ask your, financial planner or accountant, specifically on those issues, because there might be different situations for different people.
Right.
Right. I think that answers it well. Melissa, feel free to follow up in the chat if you have additional questions on that point. Oh, sorry, Melissa, are you trying to follow up?
I can do it in the chat if you prefer.
It's a little choppy, so I think it'd be best if you could type it into the chat. And while you're doing that, I'll just move on to the next question from Charles. So he's asking, at what point in the process would you engage the organization that you're planning to support with your donation? And Karen, maybe this is a good question for you, as you have a lot of experience with this. And if Jen or anybody else has advice, that would be appreciated. But I'll kick it to you first, Karen.
Yeah, I think that it really depends. Like, I think that from statistically, it's there to say that there's probably about 50% of people who put gifts for certain organizations and never tell them. It just comes as a surprise. I think that I think it's really helpful to tell the organization if you're putting a gift into your will or trust, because for one thing, they would like to recognize you, and also there might be special events, those kinds of things that you could participate in. And also, even though general support is great, some people really want to designate, they're really interested in, maybe we have somebody who's really passionate about the Sierra Valley area, and they want their gift to go towards something with preservation and conservation in Sierra Valley. So I think that that's a good way to, it's good to engage people or engage the organization if there's something specific. And yeah, so I think it really depends, but I would, it's really helpful for us to know who's put maybe the land trust in their will or trust, so that we can recognize them, for one thing, the way they want to be recognized. And some people want to be anonymous and some don't. And yeah, so I don't know if that helps you or not.
Karen, this is Chris Murray. I have a comment.
Yeah.
Yeah, one of the things that I learned from you was that your organization, the Land Trust, has a form which you make available to someone considering legacy giving. And that form kind of helps the person who's considering it to answer a few questions for themselves. And so I worked and cheated, stealing things from your form for both the Plumas Ski Club, and I believe Darla has also cribbed from your form for Friends of Plumas Wilderness. So the forms themselves, I think, help us when we're considering giving.
Yeah, and the form, let me see if I'm off of mute, I think so. The form is helpful because I think we ask people to maybe put their executor, so that when somebody does pass away, if we get a call, we kind of know that this is the executor of this person's estate, and we can work with them. And so it is helpful to get some information.
And I think, as you said, Karen, as well, every organization is different, but if it's, if you're part of a small community like ours, and, this is something that you're really passionate about, it also can give you a chance to get to know other people who are committed to those same values. For example, like at the Land Trust, we have a circle of members who have made this commitment, who we might invite to a special event that we do, as Karen mentioned. So it can just be a nice way to kind of build community as well.
And I do think that the way Chris did it, and I don't know exactly, but he put quite a few or several organizations, in his trust. So that's really an option for people. I mean, you don't have to just pick one organization if you're sort of passionate about several organizations in your community.
All right, well, I didn't, Melissa, I don't know if you're still able to put your question through, but I did not see a follow-up there. We don't have too many questions in the chat. So if anybody has another question, please put it in at any time. And we do still have a little bit of time, so we could wrap up with additional questions at the end, but it's wide open. So if you do have something you'd like to ask, please go ahead. But in the meantime, Karen, I can kind of turn it back to you to introduce some of the other partner organizations.
Sure.
Share a little bit about them.
That would be great. So when we decided to do, when we decided to do this webinar, we thought it would be valuable for the land trust owners and members, but it would also be valuable for other organizations that we also support and we know are really important in our community. And so the organizations that we have listed, we have, different, kind of dramaworks, that we have their mission and we have their contact information. And so if you're interested in any of these organizations in sending, and talking to them about, gifting in your will or through your IRA, we wanted to make this contact available for you. And we'll also be sending it out to you in the next few days. Let's see, I see one of them, just dramaworks. Oh yeah, okay. So yes, dramaworks, and then we had Friends of Plumas Wilderness, and Plumas Arts, Plumas Audubon, and the Plumas Ski Club. And I think we have representatives in the as participants that from each of those organizations. So we wanted to make it easy if you needed to reach out to any of those organizations.
Because we have a little extra time, if anybody did have questions for any of the other organizations specifically, we do have a little extra time if anybody wanted to ask anything else.
And maybe since we have, oh, go ahead, sorry.
Go ahead, Karen.
Oh, and maybe I think we have people from each of those organizations if they wanted to just say hello.
Why don't we go around to call in folks so that you guys can speak up? So do we have Edie here from dramaworks? Don't think
I don't see Edie.
So why don't we go to Charles? I know Charles is here with Friends of Plumas Wilderness.
Yes, I am. Thank you all for having us. And Chris, thank you for speaking about us so kindly in terms of your engagement with Darla over the time you've been in the area. As an organization, and some of you may know me, some of you may not, but we've gone through a lot of changes recently and brought on a staff, including myself as executive director, taking over for Darla at the beginning of this year, and engaged in a number of different projects with a larger campaign of proposing a national monument within the Upper Feather River watershed. So we'll be completing some upcoming community meetings, and we encourage everyone to get involved and ask questions and engage us on that. And we also moved recently, well, at the end of 2022, to an office behind Quintopia. We're at 546 Lawrence, so feel free to drop by. And thank you all for hosting this. Thank you, Karen, especially for your engagement with us and helping us navigate this.
I think we have Kara on the line. Do you want to say a few words, Kara, from Plumas Arts?
Yeah, sure. So I sort of mirror what Charles said. I really appreciate Karen reaching out to us individually and having us included on this webinar, but then also kind of giving us the kick in the pants that we needed to get moving. Setting up a legacy giving program was something that was on Roxanne's to-do list before she retired. And with all the changes that come with moving out of a position that you've had for 35 years, it never really happened. And so I appreciate Karen reaching out, and I am going to be working with the board to start setting up that information, having the information available on our website for a legacy giving program. So thank you.
And And maybe Liz, you're on from Plumas Audubon?
Yeah, hi everyone. My name is Liz. I'm the operations director at Plumas Audubon Society. My co-director and executive director is Ryan Toney, and we recently have been bringing on some new staff as well. I also work at Friends of Plumas Wilderness as conservation and planning director. So I got myself in a couple different organizations here in the region, primarily focused on wildlife and public lands conservation. And Plumas Audubon's been around for over 30 years and had some amazing creators. And now we are working primarily on monitoring endangered frog species and doing a pilot study for grebes up at Lake Almanor to see if we can prevent some of the losses to their populations that occur every summer. And other than that, we're just trying to keep on doing our speaker programs and field trips to serve our community, and also visiting 5th grade classes throughout the county to teach kids about birds and to get outside, which has been really great. So that's kind of a little bit about our organization. And thanks so much to Feather River Land Trust for putting this on and opening that door. Like Kara said, I think with this lead in to how to begin creating something like this, I think a lot of us are going to be exploring the options, and really appreciate you taking the time to set this up.
Sure. And Chris, do you want to talk a little bit about the Plumas Ski Club?
Sure. The Plumas Ski Club has been around for, I guess, about 7 decades. And my parents transferred back to Quincy in the Forest Service, here to Quincy in 1960. And at that time, I was 13 years old. And immediately, my parents took me up to the ski hill where we had work days in the fall and began skiing on the 2 rope tows that were at our ski area. And it rapidly grew as I went through high school and then was away in college. And at its greatest size, there were sometimes 40-minute lines of people waiting to get on one of the 2 pommel lifts that came from the Squaw Valley Olympics. And we had several additional rope tows and a bunny hill, and had literally hundreds of people operating up there. And over the years, the Plumas Ski Club, as well as Eastern Plumas Rec District and Gold Mountain, all took turns at operating the Plumas Eureka ski area. And at this time, the Plumas Ski Club is entering into a long-term relationship with state parks. And it's our plan to again have an operating surface lift there to teach young people skiing and to be more open to sledding. And we have worked hard on our physical facilities so that we can hold events at other times of the year rather than just winter sports events. So this summer we'll be having a concert there in, I believe it's in August. And we hope to be able to do things like weddings and all, as our facility really lends itself to more of a multi-season usage. So my family and I, my children learned to ski at the Johnsville Ski Hill, and I continue to be passionate about the position that it plays in our community. And so when I began to think more about raising funds to improve our operation, Karen, your wonderful work at the Land Trust inspired me, and that's where we went. And we do have forms available if any of you have 6 or 7 figures that you'd like to donate, or even less. We eagerly will take all donations. Thank you, Karen.
Thanks, Chris. Okay, I just wanted to let the different organizations that partnered with us that we will also be sending you a recording of this if you'd like to use it on your website, and some other follow-up. So Corey, do you have anything you want to end with?
I think that's it. We don't have any more questions in the chat, but just to invite everyone who's here tonight or watching our recording that you can always reach out to any of these contacts here on this slide. And if you have additional questions, please, Jennifer McQuarrie is available for legal advice. And we do always recommend that if you do have legal questions, you do consult an attorney. Yeah, please check out our websites of all these great organizations and you can find out more. And if you are interested in including any organizations in your estate planning, we do always appreciate knowing, as Karen mentioned, so that we can incorporate it into our plans and acknowledge you and invite you into a community of like-minded supporters. So you can find that information on our websites. Thanks, everybody. Have a good
Thank
night.
you, Cor-
Go ahead, Chris.
Is that slide possible to send out